Saul and Battery, hosted by Mel and Kelly.
And Mike.
Forget what you know. Forget what you know. A song and battery.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Saul and Battery, where we recap the most recent episode of Better Call Saul. I'm Kelly Toole at KELLYTHUL on Twitter.
And I am Mike at Official Pagan on just about everything.
Yeah, and on a recent, soon-to-be-published, like tomorrow, the Squat Cobbler, Mike recommends some fancy, smancy analog stuff there, but you can have all those tools, but I dare you to go back to that theme song and find where I did a little bit of editing, because it's seamless.
It's true, yeah. Obviously you were there with the X-Acto blade and the tape, splicing things together and
moving electrons one another on the cassette tape. It was a labor of love.
It's pretty high tech. It's definitely beyond my pay grade. But you and I are going to be hanging out this weekend.
Yes, indeed, and there'll be more content, because I know folks cannot get enough content for Mike and I. It's a little unclear exactly what it will be, but there will be something of a live nature done from Atlanta. Hopefully not from any sort of Atlanta detention facility or anything there, but there will be
as long as it's still Atlanta, it counts.
Right, and I'm sure they have Wi-Fi in the prison, so we'll be fine. Everything would work well. But we'll be this will be the first time Mike and I have met in person here tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, assuming we get in at a reasonable hour tomorrow, you're flying in, but we're going to be driving in, Corey and I.
Yeah, that. God bless you. That's going to be. That's going to be a journey. Yeah, we may give you a slack. So Mike and I might meet for the first time on Saturday at the Atlanta Zoo, which is another location I thought might be kind of fun to do some Squat Cobbler from. We'll have to see if exactly how we do it. Yeah. This might be the time we talked about trying to do like about 52-minute episodes. We might just like do a whole bunch of them.
Yeah, that's a possibility too. We could probably knock out a couple of them while we're in Atlanta.
I think it's possible.
I mean, it is the home of trap music,
which is the official music of Squat Cobbler and the Saul and Battery. So there you go. Well, we will start our show off like we always do. Before we get to the 30-second recap, any top-line reactions to this episode? This is 8. I mean, we've only got 2 more for this year.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where we're going to wrap up. Because I feel like there's some new threads that we're kind of looking at now and some new paths we're going to be going down. So I don't know how much is actually, I mean, not that I expect the entire story to get wrapped up, but like how much of a cliffhanger are we going to be left with this season, considering there's only 2 left? How many unanswered questions will we have?
Yeah, I got to think at least. I mean, because amongst the many threads to wrap up, you're going to have what happens to Kim. You've got what happens to Nacho, Chuck, and when does Jimmy, as we knew him, go away? And so I got to think at least one of those storylines reaches some level of conclusion by the end of the season. But
yeah, I definitely think there's one in particular of those that you just said that I think we will have a certain level of resolution on.
Yeah, and I think were there things in this week's episode that led you to believe that something's coming to close?
Yes.
And so I think as we get to those parts, let's talk about it, because I think we might be on the same page on that.
I think so as well, yeah.
So we'll see. But before we get into that fun conversation, we get to have Mike run us through the entire episode in 30 seconds or less. Again, I'll point out how much easier he has it than me. I do that every time. All he got to do is start talking. And I've got our highly expensive timer ready to go. So whenever you are ready, Mike, I will start the timer.
All right, then. Slippin' Jimmy leaves nothing on the table. Mike detects a body. Chuck's future looks bright. Saul takes a tumble down the stairway to extortion. Kim puts Howard in check. Chuck goes shopping but might be in the market for new insurance. Pill practice makes perfect for Nacho. Saul takes community service lying down. Mike tries washing his money in Gus's deep fryer. Done.
Nicely done. Little treasures in there. Stairway to recovery. Like it. Or deep frying money laundering deal. So what was that? I like it.
Which one?
The very tail end with Gus.
Oh, Mike tries washing his money in Gus's deep fryer.
There you go. I like it. Sounds a little dirty, but I like it.
The Mike and Gus erotic fan fiction you've all been waiting for.
Man, that'll leave a mark. Which was the name of the series. So it was very nice. Okay, well, let's just go ahead and kind of step through this bad boy at a more leisurely pace in the 30 seconds. Although realistically, you've now learned all about the episode from Mike.
Yeah, there's really nothing else you need to know. Like, I did it. I nailed it for you. You're good.
Yep, absolutely. But so we start this one with Kim hanging out with our Mesa Verde friends. I'll make sure I'm starting at the right place here. No, we're not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
You're not.
I am not. Let's back that all the way up.
You did not listen to my 30-second recap.
I did. I was like, this seems like the wrong time. I had to catch up because I wasn't able to catch it when it live aired. I missed it because there was a the Snark Stock prep meeting ran a little long, and so it made me miss the beginning of Better Call Saul. So what I just read to you is where I started taking notes because I joined the show about 20 minutes late, and my house in order. So good. Sorry about that. Marco's back in the call.
Yes.
Sound a little better? Sound like I'm on track?
Yes. That sounds a lot more like the show that I watched.
Yep. That we got Marco back. They're breaking into the old McGill store, and Jimmy's hidden something there up in the ceiling tiles. He pulls out an old Band-Aid can that's full of rare coins, and Jimmy kind of tells the story of how somebody left a really valuable coin, paid with a really valuable coin, walked out, and Jimmy told his dad. His dad tried to run the guy down to give him back the coin. Then he stuck it on the register on the chance the guy would come back. And so Jimmy began to say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So he began to, anytime there was a coin of any interest, pull it because they needed it because they're going to run one of their scams from there. So it was awesome to see Marco again.
Yeah, I was happy to see Marco again.
And it was even happier to find what Jimmy had stashed in their old store wasn't lots of money, but just a couple valuable coins versus, it's still an open question when Chuck alleges that Jimmy stole them blind. We still don't really know how much of that is Chuck and how much of that is truth. But I was a little worried as they were in there that we were going to start to learn that there was greater truth to the Chuck version of the McGill family history, but we haven't seen that yet for sure.
Yeah, I kind of thought that for a second as well, especially with him climbing up on the desk and getting up in the ceiling. But then where I was a little bit confused with that was like, if there was a substantial amount of money there, like it looks like this store has been abandoned for a while. Why has he left it there? Yeah.
So that's where it made a whole lot more sense with what it was to say, oh, okay, so that wouldn't be necessarily something you come back to. But when Jimmy's scam's running a little low, he's, I need a old fancy coin to pull a trick. He remembered, oh yeah, I got some of those there.
And it was good. Like, it was another peek, through Jimmy's eyes of what their childhood was like, since our previous exposure was, Chuck's version of events. Now we kind of get Jimmy's. And what was interesting too is you can kind of see like him feeling like he's not connected to his family in the same way that you see him with Chuck now, and the way that he just wants to cut Chuck loose and go his way. Like you can kind of see that there.
Yeah, the kind of combination of kind of frustration and distance between Jimmy and the family, which is it's unfortunate. But we come back then, and when our good friend Mike is in the desert. He's got a metal detector, as all senior citizens do, and he's looking for something. And really awesome overhead shot of Mike scanning the desert and finding a lot of tin cans and other things for a while. But eventually he hits the jackpot, and he finds a body, which I think we can all very safely assume is the Good Samaritan who found the driver that they took out.
Right. That's what I would assume.
Yeah. And so I also assume this is the one more thing from last week's episode when he and Nacho were wrapping things up. He said, I need one more thing from you. And I'm assuming that one more thing is tell me the general area that this body's in, because playing back to the Mike's new potential love interest, she was talking about just the pain of not knowing if that person's really dead or not, or finding the body weight on them. And so this is kind of Mike addressing that wrong that he helped create. Right.
And then of course he calls his air quotes find into police.
Yeah. And he is so much a better liar than Walter White ever was. I think he's a better liar than Jimmy.
Could be, yeah.
You know, when they're like asking him for his name and the way he just kind of rolls all that off, it's just, it doesn't feel contrived. And Mike's a very good liar.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Kelly, let me ask you something. Have you ever found a body?
No. I don't really know why I had to think about that very long.
Yeah, I was going to say, wait a second.
I wanted to give an accurate answer. No, I have...
I could wait. Anybody could answer that. Like, if you find a body, like that's a traumatic, life-changing event. Like you really had to think through that. And you're like, find a body. Is that the same thing as creating the body?
That's right.
Like there was mechanics working in there.
Yeah. So can we try that again? No, not at all.
Wait, what? No. Who finds bodies?
So, Mike, have you ever found a body?
No, but it was funny when I was watching this though, because it did remind me. So I grew up in kind of a shitty area. It was like a rundown, and it was probably at one time like an industrial area. But at the time I was growing up there, it was pretty run down, and I was in like a small, not great house that was behind a prosthetic limb factory, and on the other side of us, like down the street, was a slaughterhouse. And there was just a bunch of like warehouses around us that I guess at one time were businesses that had just folded. And a few miles away is just miles of park. And there was a guy who lived down the street from us. He used to run in the park. He was a jogger. He would run in the park all the time. Again, not a great area. And just like any major city in a park, you usually have a strong homeless community. So I remember as a kid, like he found a body in the park, and I was like, wow, that's crazy that, I don't know how I would react or how I would respond when you find a body somewhere like that. And then I remember like a few years later, he found another body, and I was like, all right, am I the only person who's suspicious now? Like me and my friends sneak into that park pretty frequently to drink or smoke weed. Never found a body. This guy too.
Some folks have a knack.
Yeah. I was just like, am I the only person who's looking at this guy? Like, that guy fucking kills homeless people out in that park.
I think it could be it allegedly. I like to point out allegedly.
Well, I didn't say his name, so
yeah, there you go. But as you started that story off, what struck me was your where you grew up has the makings for the worst Dr. Seuss book ever, where the protagonist lives between a slaughterhouse and a prosthetic limb factory. It'll be like a leg. I say, it'll be.
Yeah, it was a really weird place to grow up.
Real ones, fake ones, cold ones, steak ones, stuff like that. It would be great.
I feel like this book is writing itself now.
It is. It would be, and it should be a pop-up, a Dr. Seuss pop-up book.
You open one page, a leg pops out.
And then there'll be activities for the kids, like find the body in the park, and there'll be the jogger guy kind of helpfully pointing the direction to look, and that'd be great.
But seriously, like if somebody found 2 bodies within a couple of years, and again, not a great area, there is a lot of homeless people in the park. Like, I'm not saying it's impossible, but 2, like 1 body, I don't think anybody really. But when you find your second body, you have to kind of think like, all right, this guy's killing people, right?
It's at least worth some investigation.
Right. I feel like I don't remember any big deal being made about this. Like, it was just like, oh, that's Bobby finds dead bodies.
But somebody who's not dead is Chuck. At least not yet. Although some of us are rooting. Some of us are rooting for it.
I liked your transition back into the show.
Nice and smooth.
It was really smooth. But I have to add one more thing just in case anyone's interested. The slaughterhouse is long since closed down. Prosthetic limb factory is still there. So it's a
Did they
thriving
specialize?
business.
Were they armed people, or it was any limb?
So it's funny because I have no idea, because it used to just be, it was just a warehouse. It was like an industrial area. But now apparently they have like a showroom that you can go into. Like, I guess the business is more built up now. And I don't know how big of a market that really is. So for all I know, they could be like the only one on the East Coast. I have no idea. So they have like a full showroom and everything now. So apparently that's a thriving business if anybody's looking to invest in something.
Yeah, and I'd like to offer them a little free marketing help as well. Is that now with the kind of the hipster trends and things going on, you want to kind of have a place for the customers to come in and have an experience your brand as they make the selection. So you got to kind of make it cool, like a happening place. So they should name the showroom, I believe, the Armory.
That's good.
So hey, that's for free, because I'm sure we're big in the prosthetic limb factory demographic. It's been, as we've looked at our numbers, we know that we over index with them. So hopefully they're listening.
I'm sure they are. I'm sorry, sir. Continue. You had that beautiful transition that I ruined.
So we'll go another one. Someone with no prosthetic limbs, Chuck, is talking about his electrical issues with the doctor.
Yes.
He's been very, in the Chuck-like way, very methodical. He's logging everything. He's trying different things. He's getting better. He's feeling pretty good about the progress he's making. He has plans to get better. The doctor kind of goes, well, this could take years. Don't try and rush this too much. And she says, well, but tell me why you did call. And it comes back to the public humiliation that he went through when Jimmy kind of set him up with the battery and in his pocket, and he didn't feel anything for 2 hours. So that definitely has left a mark with Chuck. And he's trying hard. He's stubbornly trying to get better and making some progress.
It's interesting to me because, like you said, it's the very Chuck way of approaching it: detailed, methodical, note-taking, goal-oriented approach to all of this. Yet at the same time, the reason he's doing this is because he was forced to confront the fact that this is largely, if not entirely, psychological.
Yeah.
So he knows it's psychological, but he's still approaching it as if it wasn't in his notes. Like, as if he's like, steeling himself to this.
Yeah. He's an interestingly wired individual. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And it fits perfectly with the character.
Yeah, Michael McKean's just knocking. I mean, this whole cast is all. I mean, they are all so good. including the lead, Bob Odenkirk, who we get to see go back to the guitar store to the guys that he said, okay, I'll do one for free as long as you buy the rest if it does it. And obviously the commercial has worked. Their store's super busy. And then they start basically on, well, we called the station and it only costs this. And we don't want to pay you for this. And it's kind of our commercial anyway. And Jimmy's like, well, no, it's not really. Or I guess Saul at this point, because it is Saul Goodman Productions. Saul kind of tells them, no, it's really ours. And they're like, we could do it ourselves anyway. And so he's yet again, these run aground with this guitar crew who's not going to help him out. And so he does it. There's the return of Slippin' Jimmy, and he kicks out a drumstick and talks to them one last time and goes down hard at the end of the scene and asks them if they have liability insurance.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good scene. Again, call back to Slippin' Jimmy in the beginning, so we got to see, more of that, more of him sort of, I don't know if regressing is the right word, but really losing the trappings of the straight and narrow life, or his equivalent of the straight and narrow life that we've seen. I like that he told him to turn the camera on first before he did it. The whole scene was really good, but again, you see more of him sort of losing his grip with morality.
Yep. Yeah, I think we're seeing the slide back to that. And for those of you who were Breaking Bad fans prior to Better Call Saul, there's a famous scene where Bryan Cranston had brought a pizza, wanted to have it with Skyler and the family. She kind of shuts him out, and so he angrily throws the pizza and lands it perfectly on the roof. And did it in one take, and it was an amazing thing. And I didn't think I could ever see anything equal to that. But unless, and I'll be interested in your thoughts. Was this a visual effect, or was Bob Odenkirk able to slip on that drumstick and kick it up into the drum set to hit a cymbal, to have that nice crash as he hit?
So I have a feeling that it was carefully cut together. Now, whether or not the cymbal crash was a result of, a freak happy accident, whether it was planned, but I'm sure it was cut together simply because of the fact that they're not going to let Bob Odenkirk actually hit the ground just because of insurance issues.
Yeah.
Like we had, and again, I've never worked on anything the budget of Better Call Saul, and we have had insurance issues on videos before for stuff with people that, no offense to anybody's worked on my stuff, but people that nobody knows. Do you know what I mean? Like people who there aren't like big people invested in, and we've had to have like weird insurance issues and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's cutaways and a stunt person in there. So I would be interested to know if that was planned, if it was a happy accident, what degree, like how faked it was. If it was planned, was it just something where they had him do it 50 times until it happened? Or I would be really interested in the backstory to that.
Yeah, I'm sure that they address it in the. I shouldn't say I'm sure. I think there's a high likelihood that they address it in the Better Call Saul Insider podcast that the producers put on for the show. So I'm looking forward to listening.
That other Saul After show.
Yeah, the second best show that talks about the distant second best show.
Second. That's important to make that distinction.
So I'm sure we'll hear their theory, their ideas on how this happened. But now that you've gotten the straight stuff from Mike and I, you can listen to their feeble attempt to tell it. But I am interested to hear what they have to say about that, because I find it nearly impossible that could have been. There had to be some level of assistance one way or another, whether it's a string on the drumstick that pulls it up into the drum kit. Because I thought, they maybe just kind of juiced it, but it looks like it hits the part of the drums that would cause the sound that it made. And so it's like, wow, that's pretty miraculous. And it was just perfect. So it was a great scene, and we're slipping Jimmy's back. And now we come to what I like to call the beginning of the show. At least I tried to make it where I started last time. We now have Kim meeting with Mesa Verde. And the Kevin, the kind of corporate overlord, super happy guy. He's really all excited, loves his golf, and he's talking about a friend of his who doesn't know whether to shit or wind his watch, which is not usually an A/B selection for me. This isn't, but I guess apparently for Kevin's world, that's a common thing to work your way through.
I would just love to see, because I'm 35 and I've had limited experience with winding watches. So I'd love to see a fan who's like in their 20s who has no idea what that is.
Yeah. Wind the what? Huh? Yep.
Wind your watch. They just start spinning their phone around like it's a fidget spinner.
Yeah. It's like, is that code for something?
Yeah.
So Howard blows over, and Kim starts to get up, and he very like a dog tells her to sit, and was just kind of being kind of douchey around. Oh yeah, Kim used to be cleaning the toilets for us. He's just kind of a dick, and kind of heads off. And so this has got Kim kind of steamed. So she goes off, writes something. We're not exactly sure. I assumed it was a note, but it turns out it was actually a check where she's basically wanting to. There was Hamlin and Hamlin covered her student loans for her to get her law degree, and Howard had said we're going to still take care of it. And Kim says, no, you're not. I'm going to just basically get out from underneath there. Howard tears the check up because he's in a really bad mood because he's having to spend a lot of time defending their reputation based on the outcome of the trial. And he's got a fair point that's not so good. But Kim also points out fairly she was just doing what she needed to do to defend her client. And what came to light wasn't a lie. It's something they had been hiding from their clients anyway.
Right. And that's the thing that I think was important with this scene, because in the previous episode, we had seen Kim sort of struggling with what she had done and feeling bad about it or feeling guilty about it. But really, again, it was her job to discredit him, and they discredited him using facts, using his actual mental illness. So that it's more an issue of ethics than it is right or wrong or legality of it. We need a lawyer on this show, on all of our shows probably, but on this show particularly.
So Christina Bach, if I'm not mistaken, in one of her bios, on either Instagram bio or Twitter bio, I think she lists recovering attorney. So there may be a little bit of a legal background with Ms. Bach. And so all we need now is she's watching Better Call Saul and being willing to hang out with us. Okay, so the last one might be a problem. We'll work our way through it. But yeah, we do need a lawyer. And actually, I've got a couple acquaintances that I might. But yeah, we do need to bring in someone with greater legal expertise to help us through some of this stuff. So if you're a listener of the show and a lawyer, we'd love to have you on, not just to develop a relationship to help us with any post-Atlanta fallout here after Snarkstock.
Which is a very strong likelihood.
Yeah, I think it would be wise. I've been saving my pennies, so we'll be ready to go. And now the next one, it's a fairly decent scene in terms of length, but and it's a very interesting thing to watch, but actually not a lot happens, because the scene we go to next is basically Nacho making pills and Nacho practicing dropping the pills in a coat jacket. That's it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the dropping the pills in the coat jacket. I thought that was interesting, because so many times in movies or in TV shows, when you have people do things like this, like make swaps for things or pickpocket somebody or replace something, they just do it. And there's no sense that the character spent hours practicing this or working on it or anything like that. So I actually kind of like that they showed you this whole, him practicing this nonchalant drop of the pill bottle into the jacket pocket as it hung off the back of a chair.
Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed in this scene, but sitting on the table, it was the Complete Idiot's Guide to Pickpocketing by Huel. So it was available. So he was learning from the master, and with fingers the size of sausages. But it was a cool scene. Yeah, and usually it's like, oh yeah, and they just do it. But this points out the very real issues of it's not an easy thing to do these kind of very quick switches and all those types of things and not have somebody catch you.
Yeah, I actually this was probably my favorite scene in the show, just because you never do see that in any of these kind of pickpocket or item switch things that you see so often in movies and TV shows. You never see the character practicing it.
Nope. Yeah, and it was you agree, and it was great to see, and well done. Michael Mando's knocking it out of the park because again,
yeah, he's great. Everybody in the show, as you said earlier, everybody in the show is great.
Yeah, it's awesome. So we come back, and Chuck is now going shopping, and he has developed some sort of coping mechanism that involves mentioning an object and its color. So it's like gray door, green carpet, which, by the way, might be a fun way while we're at Snark Stock. That basically that ought to be we just should do that throughout the entire weekend. Brown door, gray.
Not tell anyone what we're doing.
No, yeah, just do it.
Yeah, just do it.
That might be fun. But and then he's doing pretty good. His little color object thing seems to be helping him get through a couple rough spots. But then he needed, I forget what he was looking for, but soy milk, yes. And he had to go through the valley of freezer death to get to soy milk. It was 2 columns of a hallway or an aisleway lined on either side with electrically humming freezers with lights and coils and everything going, and Chuck's going to have to ride through the valley of death to get his soy milk. And it was I think he made it, but it was not easy on our friend Chuckles, for sure.
What's interesting, when I saw that scene, I really thought he wasn't going to make it. Like, after this little bit of progress, he was going to tumble completely backwards, and the next time we were going to see Chuck, he would be like in a hospital, locked away.
Yeah, I thought that was a distinct possibility. So we cut back to Kimmy's workplace, our celebrity couple, or as usual, Kim's working and Jim's playing, and he's playing a guitar signed by a member of Pink Floyd, I believe, something along those lines. It was
signed by Candace Knight's husband.
There you go. And so apparently his settlement with the guitar jerks worked out pretty well. Not only did he probably get some cash, which because he settled up with Kim on that, but he got a nice guitar out of the deal as well. And my runner-up quote was from this section where Jimmy says, "My back hurts like hell and people suck," which I thought is a nice statement on the human condition.
It really is. And you can see, to me, a little bit more in this scene of Jimmy kind of pulling away from that world that he was in with Kim.
Yeah, and Kim seeing it because, he's like, "You believe me, right?" And she says yes. It seems like a perfunctory yes. I'm not sure if she means it or not, but it's more like, "Yeah, I'll believe you because I don't want to think about this long enough because I think about it hard, I'm not going to believe you, and I just don't want to go down that road." But I don't think it was a deep, sincere belief in Jimmy at this point beyond just I think the relationship is starting to crack in lots of places, including Kim, who kind of rightly, given her work ethic and how much she really throws herself into things, when the old don't know whether to shit or wind his watch guy was needing some help, Kim was like, "I'll line him up with somebody, but I can't take on anything else." She ends up calling him and saying, I can help you out, because I think Kim's starting to realize there's going to come a time in the not too distant future where Jimmy's not going to be in the equation the way we thought he would be.
Right. I think she might still be looking out for the both of them at this point, but she is looking out for herself a little bit here.
Yep. Which she's good at doing, and I don't mean that in a bad way, because she's, I save me. She's a strong individual. A little snippet of Chuck back at Howard back at Chuck's place, rather. And I mentioned a malpractice insurance and they need to talk. So I'm sure we're going to hear more about that next episode. This is probably Jimmy's little scheme at the insurance agency starting to bear root, that he had kind of filled him in that Chuck didn't have a particularly good day in court. And so my guess is that while Jimmy's malpractice is going to double when he gets back to practicing laws, I think Chuck's going to get a little bit of a rate increase as well.
Yeah, that seems fair to say. But I definitely think this is going to be setting up, what might be the final confrontation between them.
Yeah, I think because if Chuck, on the off chance that Chuck had finally gotten Jimmy out of his crosshairs and is more focused on getting better himself, which is what he should be doing anyway, maybe he was starting down that road. But now this is happening, and the more he starts to connect, and he's a sharp guy, so he will start to figure out at some point how this. Well, even if he doesn't figure out how it happened, it's because what Jimmy and Kim did. That the blame's going to be on his brother, no matter what. So I do think there's a chance it's going to reignite Chuck's desire to make Jimmy's life hell, which is not what I'd like to see, but it could happen.
Could happen, but I think we're going to see Chuck and Jimmy go up against each other now, with Chuck maybe not at full power, but more focused and more on his game than we've seen him before.
Yeah, I think so too. I definitely think so. So we cut back to the Hector's drug dealing in the open den restaurant.
Yeah.
No subtlety there. Starts off with Nacho decommissioning the air conditioner. And then we kind of cut in and just to make sure, so this is this is New Mexico. It's probably already very hot. It's a restaurant with a lot of heat going, so that can't help much either. And they really drive home the point as they kind of come in from the top of the scene with Hector kind of sitting in the back and Nacho up front, that apparently this place only has one ceiling fan, and it's the worst ceiling fan on the planet, because I think it only has like one blade or maybe two.
Yeah, it's missing blades, and it's very, very slowly turning. And again, this is not, as we've already established, this isn't really a operational restaurant.
No. Yeah. And Mike tried to get some food there one time, but I don't know if that was going to happen or not. But yeah, that was the worst fan ever. It was more like just a rotating stick. It was really terrible. And then Nacho does some things around, I got a fake bill, I think, and Hector's looking at that, and he eventually is able to pull the pills, switch the pills, and then eventually return the pills back to Hector's pocket. And as far as we can tell, Hector's none the wiser. As
far as we can tell, yeah. And again, going back to just like how we saw in practice, they really did a good job of building the scene up, building the tension, and showing you how nervous Nacho was during it.
Yeah, and that guy's usually just, 2 episodes ago, guy put a gun 2 inches from his head, and he didn't even blink. But here you can see he's pretty nervous. And this was just a gut-wrenching scene. The tension in this was just unbelievable.
Yeah, it was so well put together and so well acted.
So I truly, truly hope that Hector's none the wiser, but we shall see.
Well, we know that something happens to Hector, but we don't specifically know it's this.
Yeah, we don't. I think it's gonna be, and I like the Nacho character so much, and he's not in Breaking Bad, and I hope it's just because he went to correspondence school for ceiling fan repair and is working in other parts of New Mexico, making sure that people have good ceiling fans. We'll see. So then we finally come to the last scene where Jimmy's back in during community service with the big jerk that kind of runs this for him. There's a guy that he's running a story about a kid being sick, but he's a drug dealer and he's got something we start to piece together to do it. Jamie says, "Hey, for $700, I'll get me out. I'll get you out."
And what does Jimmy call him? He doesn't call him a drug dealer.
No. What does he call him?
I think it's like a schmug schmealer or something like that. That's what he calls him.
Which was
Rhymes of schmug schmealer, which was actually my favorite. That was my quote of the episode.
This is the same scene where my favorite quote comes as well, because after it rhymes with schmug schmealer or whatever he said there, which was great. And there was a just for tickles in there, which was pretty cool too. But so he starts to talk to this guy running it and says basically, you know, hey, I'm going to sue you for I've got a bad back and you're putting duress on me. This guy's got a sick kid and you won't let him go. I'm going to tie you up in court forever. How you explain that to your wife, blah, 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 blah. And he basically goads the guy into letting them both go with their community hours counting. And as Jimmy begins this dialogue with the individual, he goes, out here, you may be King douche nozzle. And so that was my favorite quote. Is King douche nozzle is
that is good.
Not a term I'd heard before. But there was just, I mean, this is what we're starting to get. You're starting to see the Saul rhythm, because there's like all sorts of things about like glow ball Sundays and you know, just for tickles. But you're starting to get that rhythm of Saul from Jimmy at this point in time, which is exciting.
I definitely felt like that was the most, even though he's calling himself Saul in the commercials, this was Saul. Like, this was our first real look at Saul.
Yep.
He's working for a drug dealer. He's, you know, fast talking his way out of a situation. This is Saul.
Yep. Yeah, it is 100%. And then we cut back to Mike, who is highly neat money storage system, has quite a bit now. And so he goes to visit Gus because he's got around $200K, I believe, that he's got to find a way to effectively launder and do some things with. And he and Gus are trying to come to terms about that. And so he assumes that Gus is going to want to cut. And so he says, so I'm assuming it'll be like 20%. And Gus kind of finishes off with that I would never take money from your family. So obviously Gus is going to have Mike do something else for him for this assistance if he does it at all. So I think this is also now the start of the Mike Gus relationship to the next level.
Yeah, absolutely. We're definitely seeing, you know, what's going to build that bond that we know of later in Breaking Bad.
Most definitely. So fun episode. Now, I have loved this show from the beginning. I think it's incredibly awesome. Great writing, great acting. It's a great story. This was the first time in this series for me where there was ever a scene that I just said, okay, that feels a little. I mean, there's a lot of amazing things that happen. That, you know, Mike shooting a shoe from whatever and having the drugs drop down onto a truck, perfect timing. You got to suspend your disbelief a little bit for a lot of that. But that whole kind of scene and community service for that guy that ran the community service thing was a real hard case. And for even in full Saul mode, for him to pretty quickly flip this guy from how about zero to, okay, you can go. I just felt it was a little too contrived and easy. And I'm assuming the main purpose of it was to kind of say, okay, let's create a scene where you really see Saul emerge from the Jimmy cocoon into full bore. But it was the one thing that's like, wow, he was able to kind of solve that problem with because why didn't the guy just say, screw you can talk all you want? But he did it too. So I thought that was it just stood out in what has been this kind of sea of awesomeness as a little bit of a weak point for me. It's just a minor quibble I have with that scene in the show.
I agree with what you're saying. I think storyline wise it was necessary because obviously they set it up in this episode where we see Slippin' Jimmy, we see, you know, TV producer Saul, and then we see the Slippin' Jimmy act work its way in there, which to me is what Saul is. He's the combination of Slippin' Jimmy and a salesman. And that's, to me, like, they had to do a scene like this in the sense to show us, the completed, like, this is Saul, even though he isn't, fully in character yet, as we know him in Breaking Bad. Like, to me, it was, think of it like 3, plot points in the show that they connected using that scene.
Yeah, and I get its purpose. I just kind of felt it was.
I agree.
That guy flipped a little too easy, given what we kind of, our sense of him so far was he didn't seem like, it seemed a little surprising to me that he switched as quick as he did. But minor quibble, still awesome, incredibly looking forward to it. Now, very interesting. This episode was called Slip. Next Monday's episode is called Fall. So fall could be bad. So, and we're getting close to the end of the season, so it's going to be interesting to see how things wrap up there. So our Kim-O-meter and Lyle-nometer, I was unable. I've been kind of running around this week, so I was unable to go back and check the tape to see where we had Kim or Lyle. I do know I made a big move last week on Lyle because I just kind of feel like he may be catching a break here because Hector may be out of commission before he could mess with Lyle. So I think I pulled him down like to the 40s, and I'm kind of, whatever I pulled him down to, I'm willing to stay at a steady state with him. Kim's hard. I just keep getting the sense more and more that she is going to drift away, go away. And if she does go away, she's safer than if she stays. So I think I had begun to reflect that in my numbers too. So I'm going to, whatever my numbers were last week, I'm staying at. I'm not making adjustments to either one.
I'm going to keep Lyle where he's at. You make a great point, though, that Hector might be out of commission before he gets a chance to kill Lyle. So, but I'm going to keep it where it's at only because if they happen to cross paths before then, Lyle's definitely dead.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's just it depends if he can run the clock out here.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. Like, the only thing that could save him is the fact that Hector might die before he gets a chance to see him again, or might be incapacitated. He might be incapacitated before he gets a chance to see him again. As far as Kim, though, I'm going to come down because I had Kim pretty high. I can't remember the exact number. I'm going to bring it down to about a 75, though, because I think for the first time, we knew going into this, and we discussed this, that there's 2 possibilities for her. She's dead or she's drifted away and gone off on her own. And we really, I feel like, saw the latter in this, where she's starting to kind of see Jimmy in a different light, and she's starting to think about herself and think about the future with taking on the other client, and is putting the bills and her own future a little bit ahead of her concern for Jimmy. So I think for the first time we saw like real solid foundation for that being the storyline.
Yeah, and it was, those two are so good together, and they do seem to kind of, they had a chemistry, but it's just, as things go on here, there are things that are unfortunately pulling them apart, and there seems to be more of that happening than them coming together, so we shall see. But again, incredibly awesome TV. So look forward to coming and talking about it with you, Mike, each week to kind of see where things are at. And we will be back. There will be, I don't believe there'll be any live Saul and Battery content this weekend in Atlanta, but we will be back, hopefully back on the Wednesday schedule next week to talk about Fall, the next episode of Better Call Saul. So thanks for listening, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.